Hi, I'm Andrew Elliott, and I'm really flattered to be invited to give you my top 10 reading list in medievalism. So, in no particular order, or certainly not in order of importance, here are my top 10 sort of essential reading lists for medievalism. I start off with the obvious one, which is Umberto Eco's foundational text from Travels in Hyperreality, The Dreaming of the Middle Ages, or The Return of the Middle Ages, two essays. And they are really the foundational texts of medievalism, one of the ones that sort of posits for the first time this split between the semiotic construction of the Middle Ages and the memory or the historical manufacturing of them. It's sort of a cliche, but I think it still underpins a great deal of the rest of the work. For a fast forwarding then through to some of the ways in which medievalism has developed since then, I would pick as number two would be David Matthews' Medievalism: A Critical History, emerging in 2015, which is not only an important landmark study in its own right, but it also kind of catches us up and offers an overview of a great deal of the thinking between Eco and today. The third one I would say, in terms of broadening that scope out, would be Tyson Pugh and Angela Wiesel's Medievalisms: Making the Past in the Present from 2012, which pushes the study of medievalism forward again into new territory and into new sort of ways of thinking about what medievalisms are and how they manifest themselves, as well as really the critical point that they make in the introduction is that when we make the past, we're also making the present, so we remake both, and that's a really fascinating thought. Number four would be, without doubt, the International Medievalism of Popular Culture from Louise Darsens and Andrew Lynch, a really critical text in 2014, which is not only important, again, like Matthews, because it offers a new way of thinking and new scholars' insight, but it actually forces us to step away from our kind of fascination of the Eurocentric idea of Middle Ages, of the medievalism. And so this internationalization was absolutely critical. In terms of the political medievalism, and certainly the area that I've been working in recently, I would recommend Tommaso di Carpegna Falconieri's Medievo Militante as one of the canonical texts in that field. Finally, it's been translated into English in 2019, and I think it's called The Militant Middle Ages. Very, very well worth catching up on that text, thinking about how both the left and the right and the centre and all kinds of political reimaginings of the Middle Ages come to re-establish what it means to us as we receive them. Number six, I would say, would be Gail Ashton and Daniel T. Klein's Medieval Afterlives in Popular Culture. Not only, again, because it's massively important in its own right, but if you look at the range of scholars they've gathered together that kind of argue with each other to create this kind of discourse on new medievalism and medieval afterlives, we have there Candice Barrington, Andrew Lynch, Louise Darsens, Angela Wiesel, Richard Utz, Leslie Coote, Kathleen Coyne-Kelly, and so on, and Brantley Bryant's essay on the unnameable and the uncanny I thought was really, really useful for my work. Number seven would be Caroline Dinshaw's How Soon Is Now, for forcing us to think not only about the queerness of time, as her title suggests, but also the role and the influence of the amateur as opposed to the professional scholar in terms of medievalism. As someone who works historiographically with medievalism, like me, who isn't necessarily an historian, this work was really, really helpful to think through those ideas. Number eight, I would say, would be Helen Young's The Middle Ages in Popular Culture, mainly because of the ways in which she talks about the habits and the forces, which I've understood elsewhere as like the grooves of medievalism, the points of sort of least resistance, which become these potent and powerful signifiers, which we kind of inherit. And Young's work, if you're familiar with it, takes off into a really interesting area, thinking about habits of race and habits of whiteness, which I'll come on to in a moment. Number nine, I would say, will be Richard Utz's Medievalism and Manifesto from 2017, which was not only a controversial and deliberately provocative book, and Utz clearly means it to be so, but it was challenging, and I found it really challenging in that positive sense to think through again questions of amateur versus professional, of memory versus history, and all of the ways in which we're churning medievalism and churning the Middle Ages to become kind of useful subtexts. Number 10 is something that's missing from the list, and what's missing is that important area of race, which is so topical and so critical now. But there's race, there's gender, queerness, disability, and all of these kind of subtexts which have been fortunately readdressed within the field but haven't yet become the centre, and I'd like to see some more work doing that. Certainly for me, where I realised the massive import there was in Kathleen Davis and Nadia Alschul's massively important Medievalisms in the Post-Colonial World from 2009, which really was a groundbreaking shift not only are moving away from that Eurocentric nationalism, but it's a way of looking down and realizing that the foundations that we're standing on, or we thought we were standing on, are themselves rooted in that same kind of thinking. So it's sort of that sort of iterative, self-replicating thought process of historiography. And Altschul and Davis both unquestionably and unquestionably and undeniably shift those foundations of medievalism themselves. If you're interested in that, and what's for me is starting a new re-education in medieval studies, there's also, I would point towards the excellent reading list, because I'm not a critical race theorist, the excellent reading list called Race 101 for Early Medieval Studies, which has been put together by Mary Ramburn Olm and Eric Wade, and you can find it at medium.com. And that would be my top 10 list.